Hey, what's up guys? This is Alex, and as you know, I usually make orchestral music tutorials, but lately, on Mondays, I started to do these sort of podcast videos where I talk about the business side of being an artist, the psychology you need to have to develop an artistic career, both for passion or for a living. So today we're going to talk about another of those important subjects, which is the difficulties of being a visionary and failure. Those are two things that you are going to encounter if you have a dream or if you have an ambition. You have something you're working towards, especially if it's something artistic, you're going to encounter those things. And it's not a bad thing. So let's talk about this a bit. So what I mean by visionary is this. If you have a dream, you have a vision in front of you, of a vision in your mind of what you want to achieve. It's all clear in your head. You're going to be this amazing composer or this amazing painter. You have the passion for it. You have the determination for it. But maybe right now you don't have the skills for that. So the vision is still in your head and you're working on concretizing, which means you're kind of foreseeing what is going to happen. That is what I define as visionary. And if you think of the people who are the most admired in our culture, they usually were visionaries. Martin Luther King was a visionary before he really went on to change the world and kind of cleanse it of racism a little bit. He had a dream, that's what he said. Also, Elon Musk, another great visionary, he sent freaking cars into space and he's doing incredible things. But, artists in general and thought leaders in general, usually they start from a vision they have in their mind. A vision for which the world sometimes is not ready. So let's talk a little bit about that. If you're an artist of any kind, you're a dreamer, you are just like Martin Luther King and Elon Musk, which means basically throughout the years, you have been developing certain thoughts which are a bit deviant. They're a bit, thoughts that are not belonging to the status quo. You kind of go against the current and you think of new ideas. Maybe everyone in your life is following the corporate path. They are going to university. They're thinking of, getting a day job in a house and living an ordinary life. And maybe you develop this idea that over watching other people like composers and, producers or artists in general on the internet, becoming these incredible artistic sensations, you maybe started to think, well, maybe I could do like them instead of doing the corporate thing and getting a wife or a job. Maybe I could be an artist, live an adventurous life and all those things. And you start to think those things because you are getting exposed to that. Maybe the people who live the ordinary life, maybe they're not interested in that, or maybe they're not exposed to that. So here's the situation. You go through that over the years, and over the years, you start to really develop this idea of you becoming this incredible artist, outlier, thought leader, etc. And it's all in your head, right? The people in your life, your mom, your dad, your brothers, etc., your friends, they might not be aware that you're developing this seed of an idea. And maybe it comes a day where you're like, I'm through with doing the ordinary thing. I'm gonna be an artist now. And that happened to me, and it happened to many of us who eventually, out of the blue, they were like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be a musician. I told that to everyone in my life 5 years ago, to my co-workers when I worked at an IT job, to my parents, my friends, etc. And of course, what I got back were responses like, what? A musician? You've never touched an instrument before. Please be serious. Damn, Alex, find a normal job. What the hell are you doing? How dare you challenge the status quo? You're gonna die in poverty and all those things. You get that sort of reaction out as a response for you telling them, hey guys, I found my new dream. I'm so excited, and tell you, oh no, how dare you dream about this? Live an ordinary life. That's what they tell you, right? And if this happens to you, I wanted to understand that, well, sometimes it's crab mentality, as I told in the video where I talked about haters. But many times it's the fact that the other people in your life, like your parents or people who care about you, maybe they didn't go through the same thought process as you through the years. Maybe they didn't see Hans Zimmer rising from nowhere, or lots of composers that inspire you rising from nowhere. They are not aware of the realities that can enable your vision to become true. So sometimes they tell you that out of concern. Maybe they think you're insane because they didn't go through the same thought process. There is a concept called homeostasis, which explains this better. It's like a scientific concept that pretty much says that every system has an inherent resistance to any sort of change. And you can think of society as a system. If you're this guy who thinks in a different way and is trying to bring change in society, bring change in his life, etc., etc., society is going to resist that at first. It's always like that. But you shouldn't let that put you down. That's the sign that you're onto something that other people might not understand yet. But if you really are determined, you really have that vision, then you can be like Martin Luther King or Elon Musk, who, by the way, on their path underwent lots of failure, especially Elon Musk. He's one of the most admired people right now, but he's been at it ever since 1995 with many different projects. He's always been this sort of inventor, very, driven. And here's the thing. All the inventions he created, he didn't do them to get fame. He did those, and he keeps on creating stuff because he's just positively passionate and interested about those things. So basically, if you go on Google and search Elon Musk failures, you're going to find an infographic where you're going to see a very huge list of 20 years of failures where Elon Musk proposed many different ideas, and he often got, verbally abused in public, etc. because of them. But he never stopped. And now look at him. He's freaking sending cars into space and everyone is, celebrating him like a god. But he's just a visionary. He's a person who had the courage to keep on doing his own dance until someone else catched up on that dance and people really started to vibe with that. That's how it works. This concept of the dance is something that Derek Sivers talked about in a TED Talk. Derek Sivers is the inventor of CD Baby. And he said, when you come up with a new invention, you're like in a crowd, right? And in the crowd, everyone is doing the same thing, but you are different. You came up with this new thing, and basically what you do is like you start a crazy dance. And at first, people see you and they're like, "What the hell is he doing? How dares he do this dance? Oh, act normal, please!" And sometimes they have that resistance, but eventually, if you keep on dancing, someone from far away might see that, and someone who might maybe be a bit like you in the inside is gonna think, "Oh wow, I am like that too," but he has the courage to bring it forth. And they're going to be inspired to do like you. So they start on dancing as well. And then 2 people dance, 3 people dance, 5, 10, 20, 100, and 1,000. And then after you catches up, you're still the guy who began it all. You are the leader now of a pack of people who were just like you. But maybe they didn't have the courage to do dance with you. But seeing you doing it first, after a while, they got the courage to do it. So sometimes being a visionary is about that. Martin Luther King surely didn't get his entire following in one night. It took him, a lot of time. And he also died for his ideas. That's how committed you need to be. I'm not saying that you need to die for your artistic career, but you need to be committed for something to really hack or impact our culture. You're not doing it to be accepted. If you like, the one thing you should be wary of is that if you want your art to reach people like you, then you need to persevere, which is what I did with my music. At the beginning, I had no support. Like the relationship with my parents became super hard because I decided to make music. I pretty much gave up many friendships because many of my friends were not supportive at all. And while I can cut ties with my friends, I couldn't cut ties with my parents. So, the relationship with my parents went on, and it was kind of poisoned at that time. But once they saw I was serious, once they saw the first results, etc., once I started to get that sort of social proof and success, they were like, "Oh, okay, you're serious." So they started supporting me, and they started to see firsthand that I could make it, that it could be done. Before seeing me making it in my music career, they had no notion, no example of someone who actually went from starting from zero to becoming a successful musician. That's why they were resistant. Now we're having a great relationship again. So sometimes if people in your life are not supportive, if it's friends and stuff like that, you can cut the ties there because you don't need toxic people in your life. But if it's people you care about, then give them time to understand you. Have faith that one day they will understand and support you. It will happen if they care about you. If it doesn't happen anymore, in the future, despite your success and you showing that you're serious, then maybe you need to rethink about that relationship. This is the first struggle of being a visionary, the thing of social proof and all those things. The second struggle, which is the other thing I wanted to talk about, is even tougher. So the second struggle comes when, not when you're a beginner, but when you have developed, a certain career, a certain social proof. Now you are the guy who makes certain things. So, for example, in my path in the first few years was just figuring it out. I was learning to write music and all those things. After 2 years, I started to work on the trailer music industry, making music for movie trailers with companies such as Really Slow Motion Music and End of Silence. And a few of my songs actually got used in movie trailers. And that was the thing I was doing. And, the culmination of everything I did until the point brought me there. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I found my spot. This pays well. This is something that is fulfilling, etc., etc. And it was until, the trailer music industry is freaking amazing. And also the people I met there, the friends I made, as I told you before, if you do your dance, you meet like-minded people. I only managed to get to the trailer music industry because I kept on doing my dance alone until I started to, I discovered composer friends, etc., and who were doing the same thing. And one of those composer friends introduced me to the trailer music world, where I was introduced to way more people doing the same dance and, people who were 10 times better than me. It was super inspiring, super amazing people. So I loved that industry. Although while working on it, the more and more I worked on it, the less naive I got about it. Before, I thought that trailer music was something where you could do whatever you wanted to do artistically, as long as it sounded nice and innovative, it was good. But while working in that field, I realized it's not always like that. It's a bit more complicated than that. And there's lots of formulas you need to follow, many cliches you have to follow, and there is a reason for that. It has its own logic, really. But the more I did it, the more I realized it wasn't really for me. I didn't feel like I could really express myself creatively in that field. I didn't feel like I was growing anymore because of the sort of the limit that those formulas imposed on me. And initially it was like, oh, well, whatever, bummer. I'm still going to keep on it because, it's finally I can make money with music, so I cannot complain about these things. And I kept on it. And I kept on it for a few months, and the more I did it, the more I grew resentful inside. The more I started to feel bad when opening my DAW. Like, the thought of sitting to compose music in the morning, which is something I did until this point. Until that point, I dropped everything. I sacrificed everything to compose music from morning to evening every single day, and it felt amazing. But after getting a bit tired of that trailer music formulas, etc., I started to feel bad, and eventually I hated making music. I started to hate the one thing that I love the most on this planet, and that's where I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, that was a wake-up call. I couldn't fake it anymore. It's when things that you're passionate about start to feel like something that you resent, be it a career or a lover or something, that's a bad sign. It means there's something rotten in there. So for me, I had to admit that wasn't my path. So that's the second obstacle, second difficulty as a visionary. If you're onto something, you're onto your own path, then many times you might end up choosing between the beaten path, the path that, you're certain someone already predetermined it, someone you already followed it, and the path to the unknown. Now, many times the path to the unknown is your one true path. The path that you forge, that you create, is usually the one for you. The path that is already there is usually someone else's path. And you can follow in that person's footsteps, but if you go through that path, you will never become what you were meant to become. So when that happened to me, I went on a deep depression for months. I hated my life, kind of, which was very stupid because, it's, again, I threw away everything to do this one thing, and then I ended up hating it. And I had to admit, okay, this trailer music is not for me. I love the people, I love every one of you guys, but this is not for me. So I decided, after a very, heavy project, to take a break. And I was like, okay, for a few months, I'm just gonna do my own thing. And I started to make my Final Fantasy covers, and people on YouTube ask me, "Hey, do you ever make originals?" I made only originals until for 4 years in my career, and when I did that sort of break from trailer music, that's where I stopped making originals a bit, and I started to make the music that Like I made remakes of the music that got me in love with music. So Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy X, etc. And when I made that Final Fantasy VIII remix, the first one, The Landing, I published it on YouTube and people asked me for tutorials about it. So I was like, oh, well, I like to teach because ever since high school, ever since, school, when I was little, I was always the guy who loved to do things in unconventional ways to discover ways to solve problems. And then I love to explain those to my friends. So with music, it's the same. I write music by ear. It's an unconventional way to write orchestral music. And people asked me for tutorials, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to tell them how I figured out how to do this by ear. So I started to make these tutorials, and, that was 2 years ago, I think. And now we're at 20,000 subscribers now, which is freaking incredible. 20,000 people who are doing the same dance as I. And if I didn't take that break from trailer music, if I didn't go on the path to the unknown, I would have never started this channel. You would never be watching this video. You would have never watched any of my tutorials because they wouldn't exist. And these videos that I'm making, these are the most fulfilling thing I've ever done on my music career so far. There's been lots of things before them, but everything brought me to this point. And that happened because I chose not to walk on the beaten path, but to do my own thing. Now, I'm not saying that trailer music is always the beaten path for everyone. I mean, there are some friends of mine who are making trailer music in a way that is like insane and they're getting incredible results. I just didn't like that thing. So I think rather than, making your passion about something that you don't like, I think probably in most conditions now, it depends, of course, where you are in life. But in most conditions, I think if you want your vision to become real, I think it's more important, like it's more smart to maybe take on a normal day job, a part-time job, as long as that allows you to actually do what you're passionate about when you spend time making art, rather than selling out your passion, your interests for the idea of making art and being paid for that, but making the art that you don't like. I think it's best to just get a normal day job or something and then make the art you like, because that's where wonderful things come out of, My trailer music will never sound as good as the covers I'm making now. Never. And like whenever I finish a cover or I finish one of the songs I do nowadays, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I positively listen to the songs again and again. Like I might be the #1 listener of all my covers because I love them. But I haven't listened to my trailer music songs in a year or something. And when I listen to them, it's just to show them to people. I don't like them so much, Also, my biggest growth came from my music I did for YouTube and all those things. Of course, I learned a lot from trailer labels, but all my orchestration knowledge and all those things about music writing, etc., that came from the music I made prior to the trailer music industry and also after, especially after the music I'm doing now. I think it's the best music I ever made. So I think it's important first to go over that block where people do not support you, because in due time they will support you, they will understand. They just don't have the proof that you will be okay. That's why they say those things. And sometimes they just say negative things because they are negative, people, and in that case you just take them away from your life. But if they're your parents, don't hate them, just understand they don't understand how you can create that. And the second thing is, whenever you're challenged with choosing what is you and what is popular, if what is popular is not you, it doesn't represent your passion, doesn't represent what you want to do, then do you instead of doing the popular thing. Because trends die, So if you follow a trend for all your life just because you feel secure in that, when the trend is gonna die, all the years you spend doing that thing that you hated are gonna die with it. And they're gonna leave such a bitter resentment in you that you're gonna become probably one of those guys who leave nasty comments on YouTube videos such as these, because they failed, and they failed because it was their fault, and they think, oh God, I wasted so much time, and that just makes you resentful. Now the cool thing is that no matter how much time you spend, though, you can always take the choice to walk your own path and to discover what this artistic thing or your dream has in store for you as lessons, as experiences, as growth. So always be a visionary. Be proud about it. But don't fret to be accepted by people, because just like Radiohead, who make music that people really catch up on only after a few years. You have to be like that. You don't have to fret over being accepted because you're so great that people do not understand that at first. So you have to give them time to catch up with your genius. That's how you need to think about it. It's a bit arrogant, but it's kind of what you need to keep on going, especially in the moments of self-doubt. So I'm not saying go to people and tell them, hey, I'm a fucking genius, you don't understand me. Don't do that. But you need to think that a bit. You need to be a bit like Muhammad Ali, who thought, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. And in thinking that, he made sure to actually take action in a way to really concretize that thought in reality. That's the determination you need. That's the discipline you need. And that's the belief you need to be a visionary and see it through the whole thing. So I'm still on this path myself. But, you know, the point where I arrive right now makes me feel very proud. And the fact that I can help so many people, 20,000 people with these videos, makes it all worth it. All the risk. And surely there's going to be way more risk ahead. This is not the end, this is just the beginning. But it's the same path for all of us. It's for every single person you admire, every visionary, Hans Zimmer, Radiohead, Elon Musk, Martin Luther King. Go check out their biographies. You're going to read about how they struggle with the same things as you. So you should never feel alone. If you're struggling with these things, know that they're a sign that you are growing. And depending on how you manage them, you might grow or your growth might get stifled, making you a shell of what you could have become. So always be a visionary, my friend. By the way, 2 books I highly recommend on this subject if you want to get more inspired and all those things. Well, you might ask yourself, where the hell does Alex get his philosophical insight? Well, part of it has to do with the fact that I've been on this path for like now 5 years. So that's that. But also, another thing I do is read certain books. So 2 books I recommend you on this subject. One is called Mastery from Robert Greene, and the other is The Artist's Way from Julia Cameron, I think. And one way in which I highly recommend you to read these books is Audible. Audible is this service where you can listen to audiobooks and they have books of any kind, like literally all books you can think of, there are on Audible. And the cool thing is that you can listen to them while you do other things. You do your laundry, you do your dishes, or maybe you're driving, you can listen to an audiobook. And it's like having a conversation with these very wise people who can teach you many things about what we just discussed. So if you want to get an Audible account, I think they give you a free book if you sign up. And I'm going to leave a link in the description of this video if you can get it from there. Otherwise, you can look for those books wherever. They're kind of famous. Mastery by Robert Greene and The Artist's Way from Julia Cameron. But yeah, that is all for this video about being a visionary. It was a bit long, but I hope it helped you guys a bit. And again, thank you for the 20,000 subscribers. That's freaking amazing. When we reach 25,000, I think we're going to have a bit of a celebration. You guys might want to follow me on Twitch, by the way, because if that celebration is going to be a live stream, I might be doing it. I'm going to be doing it on Twitch. I'm going to leave the link in the description for my Twitch account so you can follow me there. And yeah, I'll see you this week with a new orchestra music tutorial.